spend the rest of my life wishing I can get every last second back with her, and just continue to try to live through her for my daughter, and continue to be strong for my family.
Dozens of people came with flowers, candles, and pictures of 30-year-old Eliza Morales. They shared their favorite memories and prayed for the mom of a 2-year-old, wife, and a daughter.
I know she's a sweetheart, and she didn't deserve this. She was always cooking and the last one to eat.
Her mother-in-law, Angelica Silva, says Eliza wanted to make sure everyone was taken care of. They say she was home alone Monday night when she was brutally attacked.
She fought for her life. She was ultimately stabbed to death. The apartment was lit on fire, and she bled out and she burned with a baby inside of her.
19-year-old Nedas Revuckas has been arrested for her murder. Prosecutors say he bought a pickup truck from Morales' husband on Saturday and came back to their apartment off Ogden on Monday to return the license plates and pick up the bill of sale. They say surveillance video inside the apartment shows Revuckas fighting with Morales outside her unit. Revuckas told police he stabbed her to death with a knife and screwdriver because he was angry about the condition of the truck. Prosecutors say he lit the apartment on fire, this picture taken of the aftermath. Morales' family says what he is accused of doing is horrific, violent, and pure evil.
Part of me, wants him to also, suffer and rot in jail, or maybe even, die in jail, or even be killed before that. I don't wish that on anyone. Part of me does.
The apartment hallway was quiet on Ogden Avenue, the kind of early evening stillness that settles over Downers Grove when families are finishing dinner and winding down. Doors closed softly. Footsteps echoed faintly on tile. Nothing about the moment suggested danger. It was just another building, another Monday, ending the way thousands of days do across suburban Illinois. Eliza Morales answered the vestibule door. She was 5 months pregnant. The belly was visible. The baby was a girl, her second daughter, due in March. In her hand, she held a screwdriver, the kind you use to swap license plates to finish a simple transaction, to wrap up something small and forgettable. At just 30 years old, she had already built a life worth protecting. A payroll job at Lurie Children's Hospital. A daughter, barely a year and a half old. A home where she was cooking dinner, waiting for her husband to get off work. Her future was measured, planned, and moving forward. She handed the tool through the vestibule door to a stranger she'd never met before. A teenage buyer who'd purchased her husband's truck 2 days earlier on Facebook Marketplace. He needed to return the license plates. A routine gesture. The kind of moment where the mind stays casual, where you're just being helpful, where you're no longer cautious, just a young mother wrapping up a sale. He stepped outside with the screwdriver, then came back 5 minutes later, face visible, that same screwdriver in one hand now hidden behind his back, and a knife in the other. 19 years old. There was no argument, no warning, no chance to understand what was happening before it was already happening. She opened her apartment door. He stepped inside. The door closed behind them. Surveillance cameras captured everything except the screams. Not chaos, not randomness, just sudden, calculated violence tearing through a moment that had been ordinary seconds before. Eliza did what any mother would do. She fought back. She didn't freeze. She tried to escape. The door opened. It closed. It opened again. The handle twisted from the inside over and over, desperate, frantic. But fighting doesn't stop someone who's already decided to kill you. And screaming that you're pregnant doesn't make them stop stabbing. 70 stab wounds, most of them to her head and neck. In the span of 41 minutes, the home where she was raising her daughter became a crime scene. The apartment where she was cooking dinner became the place firefighters found her bleeding near the front door, smoke filling the rooms, a fire set to cover the evidence. She was still breathing when the flames started. She was pronounced dead in the ambulance. She survived carrying a baby for 5 months. She didn't survive opening her door. If you're into real true crime stories that dig deep into the facts and uncover the darkness behind them, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Crime Case Confidential brings you new cases every single week, stories that need to be told, victims who deserve justice, and truth that can't be ignored.
There was an emotional service for Eliza Morales as she was laid to rest today. Family and friends of Eliza Morales chose to mourn in private as they said goodbye to the 30-year-old pregnant wife and mother found murdered in her Downers Grove condo on Monday. People gathered at the American Muslim Cemetery in South Suburban Linwood for an afternoon funeral service that happened just hours after the 19-year-old man accused of killing her appeared in court.
I'm thankful that we have an outcome for Eliza, her family, and her unborn child. And I'm hopeful that this provides a sense of peace for the family as they deal with this tragic situation.
It's unconscionable, an unconscionable level of violence.
As a police chief, this is the worst call that you can get.
There are a number of pieces of evidence, including the sexual assault kit, that will be and have already been sent to our crime lab.
Relatives say Eliza Morales worked in the payroll department at Lurie Children's Hospital and hoped to have more children with her husband, who was her high school sweetheart. So far, a GoFundMe page has raised more than $89,000 to help support the family.
Eliza Morales was 30 years old, but her life had the kind of fullness that some people never achieve in twice that time. She wasn't chasing fame or fortune. She was building something quieter, something deeper. A family rooted in love, stability, and the small rituals that make a house feel like home. She grew up with values that stayed with her into adulthood. Work hard, be kind, show up for the people you love, and she did all three every single day. Eliza worked as a payroll processing supervisor at Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago, one of the nation's top pediatric hospitals. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was important. She made sure people got paid on time, that families didn't have to worry about their paychecks while caring for sick children. When the hospital released a statement after her death, they called her a valued member of our team who would be remembered for her dedication and the positive impact she had on those who worked alongside her. But Eliza's real passion was motherhood. Her daughter, Zayla, was a year and a half old, barely more than a baby herself, and she was the center of Eliza's universe. Friends and family described Eliza as the kind of mom who took parenting seriously, not in a rigid, controlling way, but in a thoughtful, intentional way. Her mother-in-law, Angelica Silva, remembered it clearly. She was a smart mom, Silva told reporters. She was always eating healthy food, organic, always at the library with her bobbies, always teaching them to be great adults like her. Eliza wanted her daughter to grow up smart, curious, and strong, just like her. And Eliza wasn't doing it alone. She had married her high school sweetheart, Gabriel Morales. They'd known each other for years before they became a couple, and their relationship was built on friendship as much as romance. They were partners in the truest sense, raising their daughter together, planning their future together, dreaming together. By January 2026, that future was taking shape in the most beautiful way. Eliza was 5 months pregnant with their second child, another daughter. They already knew. They had even picked a name, Xochitl, another little girl to love, to watch grow, to teach. Eliza had started planning, thinking about how Zayla would adjust to being a big sister, imagining what it would be like with 2 children instead of 1, preparing the home. She was due in March, just 2 months away. Everything was on track. Everything felt right. Her family would later say that Eliza was a sweetheart, that she didn't deserve this. Her cousin, Carolina Castro, told ABC7 Chicago, "She's a sweetheart and she didn't deserve this, and it's just too painful, and honestly you just don't expect this to happen." Silva, Gabriel's mother, was even more direct. "Pure evil," she said when asked about what happened to Eliza. "None of us get it. She did not deserve this. No one deserves anything like this." Silva described Eliza as just a loving person, kind person. She would take her shirt off her back for anyone. But here's what's important to understand. Eliza wasn't naive. She wasn't reckless. She was a smart, capable woman who made a decision that millions of people make every day without incident. Her husband, Gabriel, had listed a 1994 Ford Ranger pickup truck for sale on Facebook Marketplace. A buyer responded, a 19-year-old from nearby Westmont named Nedas Revuckas. The transaction seemed straightforward. On Saturday, January 24th, Revuckas came to their apartment on Ogden Avenue and bought the truck. He paid. He took the vehicle. Everything was fine. But there was one small problem. Gabriel and Eliza's license plates were still on the truck. They'd forgotten to remove them before the sale. It was a simple oversight, the kind of thing that happens all the time. So Gabriel made arrangements for Revuckas to come back and return the plates. They also needed to complete a bill of sale. Just paperwork. A 5-minute errand. Nothing dangerous about it. Nothing that should have required a second thought. The meeting was scheduled for Monday evening, January 26th. Gabriel would be at work, so Eliza would handle it. She'd meet Revuckas at the vestibule door, get the plates back, sign the paperwork, and that would be it. Transaction complete. According to every account, the Saturday sale had been uneventful. Revuckas had no criminal history. The family didn't know him before the listing, but nothing about the first meeting raised any alarms. It was just a normal Facebook Marketplace sale, the kind that happens thousands of times a day across the country without incident. So when Nedas Revuckas knocked on her door that Monday evening, Eliza answered. She probably thought this whole thing was finally wrapping up. She handed him a screwdriver through the vestibule door, a tool he said he needed to remove the plates from the truck. He stepped outside briefly. Then he came back, and she let him in. That decision, opening the door, letting a stranger into her home, wasn't foolish. It was normal. It was what people do when they're completing a sale, when they trust that most transactions end peacefully, when they believe the world is safer than it actually is. Eliza Morales believed she was safe. She believed her home was a sanctuary. She believed that a simple transaction over a used truck wouldn't end in violence. She was wrong. And what happened next would shatter her family, shock her community, and serve as a brutal reminder that sometimes danger doesn't announce itself. Sometimes it knocks politely. Sometimes it waits until you open the door. Monday, January 26th, 2026 started like any other day for Eliza Morales. She was home at the apartment. Her daughter Zayla, a year and a half old, was with family. The apartment was quiet, peaceful. Eliza decided to make dinner. Something simple, something that would be ready when her husband Gabriel got home from work. The stove was on. The kitchen smelled good. Everything felt normal. Meanwhile, across town in Westmont, Nedas Revuckas was thinking about a truck. The dark red 1994 Ford Ranger he'd bought from Gabriel Morales just 2 days earlier. He'd seen the listing on Facebook Marketplace over the weekend, responded to it, went to see it on Saturday, and after a brief meeting, he drove away with it. But there was a problem. The truck still had the Morales family's license plates attached, and Revuckas hadn't received a bill of sale yet. So on Monday, he and Gabriel exchanged messages on Facebook. They arranged for Revuckas to return to the apartment building to swap the plates and complete the paperwork. It should have been simple, a 5-minute transaction. Hand over the plates, sign some papers, shake hands, done. Revuckas arrived at the apartment building on Ogden Avenue around 5:38 in the evening. Surveillance cameras in the building's common areas captured the meeting. He met Eliza in the vestibule, the small entryway before the main door. She was alone. Gabriel wasn't home yet. The footage shows Eliza handing Revuckas a tool, what appeared to be a screwdriver, something he needed to remove the license plates from the truck. He took it, thanked her, and stepped outside. Eliza probably thought he was heading to the parking lot to deal with the plates. But about 5 minutes later he came back, and this time something was different. The surveillance footage caught it. Revuckas was holding that screwdriver, but not casually, not like someone about to use it for its intended purpose. He was holding it behind his back. hidden from Eliza's view, though visible to the cameras. Eliza didn't see it, or if she did, she didn't understand what it meant. She led him into her apartment. The door closed behind them. For the next several minutes, the cameras captured only a closed door. Silence. Whatever was happening inside couldn't be seen from the hallway. Then, at 5:47 in the evening, about 9 minutes after Revuckas entered, the apartment door opened briefly. Just a crack. Then it slammed shut. 2 minutes later, it happened again. The door opened several inches, then closed, then opened again. Each time the motion was violent, erratic. Something was wrong. Inside that apartment, Eliza Morales was fighting for her life. According to Revuckas' later confession to police, that's when it started. He told detectives he got into a fight with Eliza. His words, as if it was mutual, as if she had a choice. But the evidence tells a different story. Eliza didn't start a fight. She resisted. She screamed. She yelled that she was pregnant, and he didn't stop. He stabbed her over and over, 70 times in total according to the coroner. A majority of the wounds were to her head and neck. And despite the brutality, despite the overwhelming violence, Eliza fought back. The coroner found defensive injuries on her body. She tried to get away. She tried to push him out. She tried to survive. One of the prosecutors would later tell the court that Revuckas had numerous opportunities to stop because Eliza put up such a fight. Her mother-in-law would describe seeing handprints of Eliza getting up and falling all over the walls. This wasn't a quick attack. This was sustained violence, and Eliza never stopped resisting. But Nedas Revuckas was stronger, and he didn't stop until she stopped moving. When it was over, Eliza Morales lay on the floor of her own home, bleeding out. Her unborn daughter, 5 months developed, would not survive her mother's injuries. The coroner would later confirm intrauterine fetal demise caused by Eliza's injuries. But Revuckas wasn't done. He walked to the kitchen, the same kitchen where dinner had been cooking, and stacked items from the apartment on the burners of the stove. Household chemicals, sanitizer, anything that would catch fire. Then he started another fire near the front door. As flames began to spread through the apartment, Revuckas slipped out. He didn't call for help. He didn't check if Eliza was still alive. He just left. And outside, the family dog Zula, stabbed between the eyes but miraculously still moving, escaped through the sliding door. By 6:08 in the evening, smoke was coming from beneath the apartment door. A minute later, the fire alarm sounded. By the time firefighters arrived and entered the apartment, smoke filled the rooms. And inside, near the door, they found Eliza Morales. She was still alive, barely. The coroner would later find soot in her airways, proof that she had been breathing when the fire started, proof that she survived the stabbing long enough to inhale smoke. She was placed in an ambulance, and there just minutes later, Eliza Morales was pronounced dead.
Take a look right here. She was murdered inside this apartment right here behind me.
DuPage County prosecutors say this man, 19-year-old Nedas Revuckas, is responsible for murdering 30-year-old Eliza Morales in her Downers Grove apartment Monday. Prosecutors say 188 pieces of evidence, videos, photos, and statements from Revuckas link him to the crime. The Westmont teen is charged with first-degree murder, intentional homicide of an unborn child, armed robbery, and arson. The prosecutor's petition says the 19-year-old was upset with the condition of a 1994 Ford Ranger truck Morales and her husband sold him through Facebook Marketplace. Prosecutors say video shows the pregnant woman and Revuckas struggling at the door of her apartment. He's accused of stabbing her 70 times, mostly in her head and neck, then took household items, put them on the stove, doused them with sanitizer and household cleaners, then set everything on fire. This picture of the charred kitchen is among the evidence. The petition also says he set fire near the front door of the apartment where firefighters found Morales' body. During the stabbing, she told Revuckas she was pregnant. Prosecutors say bloody clothes and boots Revuckas was seen wearing on video at the scene were recovered inside his Westmont home.
He also took detectives to an Ace Hardware, where he had thrown out a bloodied sweatshirt he was seen wearing on video, along with Morales' husband's debit card and Morales' work ID from Lurie Children's Hospital.
When police arrived at the scene and discovered Eliza Morales' body, they immediately knew they were looking at a homicide. The stab wounds, the fire that had been deliberately set. This wasn't an accident. This was murder, and someone had tried to cover it up. But who? The answer came quickly. Investigators started with the obvious question: who had been at the apartment recently? Who had a reason to be there? Gabriel Morales, Eliza's husband, was at work when the fire started. He had an airtight alibi. He was devastated, in shock, barely able to process what had happened to his wife and unborn child. But Gabriel gave police crucial information. The truck. He'd listed a 1994 Ford Ranger for sale on Facebook Marketplace. A buyer had picked it up on Saturday, January 24th. And earlier that day, Monday, Gabriel and the buyer had exchanged messages on Facebook, arranging for him to return to the apartment to swap license plates and pick up a bill of sale. The buyer's name was Nedas Revuckas, 19 years old, from Westmont. That was the connection. Police drove to Revuckas' home in Westmont, just a few miles away. And there, parked in his driveway, was the dark red Ford Ranger. Investigators took Revuckas in for questioning late Tuesday night, about 29 hours after Eliza's murder. At first, he stuck to a story. He admitted he'd been at the apartment building. He admitted he'd met with Eliza, but he claimed he'd completed the exchange and left through the main doors. A simple transaction, nothing more. But investigators knew that wasn't true. They'd reviewed the surveillance footage. There was no record of Revuckas leaving through the main doors. None. He never exited that way. Then detectives played their hand. They'd executed a search warrant at his home, and inside they'd found boots and clothing with blood on them. That's when Revuckas broke. He confessed, not just to being there but to everything. He admitted stabbing Eliza with a knife and screwdriver. He admitted starting the fire. He admitted taking her cell phone and snapping it in half. He admitted disposing of the knife, throwing it out near Highland and Butterfield roads where it was never recovered. And then he explained why. According to his own statement to police, Revuckas was upset about the condition of the dark red 1994 Ford Ranger pickup truck that he had purchased. He told detectives he decided to take out his frustration on Eliza. Let that sink in. He was upset about a used truck, a vehicle he'd seen in person before buying, a truck sold as is, no warranty, no guarantees. And because it wasn't perfect, because it didn't meet his expectations, he chose violence. During his confession, Revuckas told police he'd stabbed Eliza 10 times. But the coroner's report told a different story. 70 stab wounds. 70. He was off by 60. Revuckas also admitted something chilling. He said that during the attack, Eliza yelled that she was pregnant. She told him. She gave him every reason to stop. And he didn't. He kept stabbing her. He kept going until she stopped moving. When asked why he started the fire, Revuckas said things like, "I didn't know what to do, I didn't enjoy it, and I didn't find pleasure in it. But he did it anyway, not out of panic, out of calculation. He wanted to destroy evidence. He wanted to cover his tracks." After leaving Eliza's apartment, Revuckas drove to an Ace Hardware store on 63rd Street and Main Street in Downers Grove. He went inside, into the restroom, and changed his clothes. He tried to clean blood off his boots using bathroom cleaner. He disposed of his bloody jacket in a garbage can at the store. Inside that jacket, police would later find Eliza's work lanyard, her IDs from Lurie Children's Hospital, her husband's debit card, and bloody gloves. He tried to erase what he'd done, and then he went home. Hours later, police knocked on his door. This wasn't about money. Revuckas had already paid for the truck 2 days earlier. It wasn't about revenge. He barely knew Eliza or Gabriel. It wasn't about passion or jealousy or survival. The surveillance footage told the story. When Revuckas returned to the apartment building that second time, He was holding the screwdriver behind his back, hidden from Eliza's view. He knew what he was going to do before he ever crossed the threshold. Detectives also learned that Revuckas lived with his girlfriend at their home in Westmont. Between Saturday, when he bought the truck, and Monday, when he killed Eliza, something festered. The resentment built, and instead of handling it like a rational adult, asking for a refund, writing a bad review, walking away from a bad deal, he made a choice. He arranged to come back, and when Eliza answered the door, he took out his anger on her. Judge Joshua Deaton would later call it a crime that shows how far he can be driven over such a trivial thing as a damaged truck. A used truck. That's what Eliza Morales' life was worth to Nedas Revuckas. Less than $2,000, less than a petty dispute, less than nothing. And now 2 people were dead. A daughter had lost her mother. Gabriel Morales had lost his wife and unborn child. A family was shattered. All because a 19-year-old couldn't handle buyer's remorse. On January 27, 2026, the day after Eliza's murder, Nedas Revuckas was formally charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, intentional homicide of an unborn child, armed robbery, aggravated arson, and aggravated cruelty to animals. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The confession, the surveillance footage, the bloody clothing, the coroner's report, the timeline that placed him at the scene during the exact window when Eliza was killed. There was no question about who did this. The only question left was, what would justice look like? And whether Nedas Revuckas would ever show a shred of remorse for what he'd done.
Terrell, 19-year-old Nedas Revuckas of Westmont is set to face a DuPage County Court judge today. He's accused of killing a pregnant mother in a Downers Grove home. Revuckas faces first-degree murder charges, robbery, arson, and aggravated cruelty to animal charges, too.
On January 29, 2026, Nedas Revuckas appeared before DuPage County Judge Joshua Deaton for his detention hearing. Prosecutors presented the overwhelming evidence: the confession, the surveillance footage, the bloody clothing, the coroner's report, the deliberate nature of the crime. They argued that Revuckas posed a real and present threat to community safety and should be denied pretrial release. Judge Deaton had seen enough. He called the attack a violent, brutal, unprovoked attack on an innocent woman and her unborn child, and he ordered Revuckas held without bond. Nedas Revuckas would remain behind bars as he awaited trial. If convicted on all charges, prosecutors indicated they would seek a natural life sentence, meaning Revuckas would never walk free again. But the story took a dark turn just hours after the hearing. That same afternoon, while in custody at the DuPage County Jail, Revuckas harmed himself. Authorities rushed him to the hospital in critical condition. His location and medical status were deliberately withheld for safety reasons. Some saw it as guilt finally catching up to him. Others saw it as a final act of cowardice, an attempt to escape accountability. Either way, it delayed the legal process and left Eliza's family in limbo. On February 1st, Revuckas was medically cleared and returned to jail. He's now back in custody, awaiting his next court date on February 18th. The trial is expected to take months, possibly years. And through it all, Eliza's family will have to relive the nightmare over and over again. The night before the hearing, a candlelight vigil was held in Eliza's honor. Dozens of people showed up outside her apartment building, family, friends, and community members who were simply moved by the tragedy. They lit candles, shared memories, and promised to never forget Eliza and her unborn daughter. A GoFundMe campaign was set up to support Gabriel and his daughter Zayla. The community rallied, raising over $150,000 to help them through the unimaginable grief and financial burden of funeral expenses, rent, and ongoing care for the family. But money can't bring Eliza back. It can't undo what happened. It can't give that little girl her mother back or let her meet the baby sister she'll never know. This case isn't just about one murder. It's about the dangers lurking in everyday transactions. It's about the risk we all take when we invite strangers into our homes, trusting that most people are decent. Eliza Morales did what millions of people do every day. She completed an online sale. She opened her door, and she paid for it with her life. So here's what we need to remember. Be careful. Meet in public places. Bring someone with you. Trust your instincts. And never ever assume that a transaction is too small to be dangerous. Because for Nedas Revuckas, a used truck was worth killing over. And if that's true for him, it could be true for someone else. Rest in peace, Eliza Morales and your unborn daughter Xochitl. Your lives mattered, your story matters, and we will not forget. Thanks for watching. If this case affected you the way it affected me, let me know in the comments. What can we do to make online transactions safer? How do we protect ourselves from people like Nedas Revuckas? I want to hear your thoughts. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a case. We cover stories like this because they deserve to be told, because Eliza deserves to be remembered, and because awareness can save lives. See you in the next one.